So I'm going to be working with Atlas again with the saddle pad. So I'm trying to build up his confidence from last time where he got a little bit worried and ran away. So I do have the start button. I'm not paying attention here like I should be because he continues to touch it. See, that first time he's really willing to touch it, and then I put the pad on. He's like, "Oh my gosh, that was a little scary." You could see him like shudder his skin and kind of like startle a little bit. So then I noticed that, and now I'm going to go back and go to a little bit easier step. So that first time I kind of put the pad all the way on, and then I kind of put it just halfway on. Now I'm putting it like 3/4 of the way on. So she needed just a little bit more time to just get used to the pad. So I'm just waiting for him to touch that cone, and then I'll put the pad on. While the pad is on, I'm clicking and then reinforcing. So that is the process. It's going to be a lot of little tiny steps. You can tell he's a little bit worried about it because he really wants to touch that cone quickly and bring his head up quickly. So he's probably still a little bit worried from the last session that we did with this. So I just want to take my time and make sure that I do every little bit, every little step in a solid way so that we can build on them. And there's no use in just rushing and then he gets scared again. So I want to make sure he's completely comfortable with wearing this pad. So I wait until he touches that cone, and then I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So again, just kind of opening the pad and not putting it all the way on him. And you can see a little bit better from this side because I'm not locking that cone. I'm just waiting for him to actually touch it. He's not touching it. He's just putting his head down. There, he actually touches it. But yeah, he's a lot faster with his neck in this session compared to the last one. So I think he is kind of just remembering the last one. He was a little bit worried about it. So this also gives me a lot of information about how he's feeling about this. So that's another reason I like the start button, and he has a little bit more control over the behavior. So it just seems to work pretty well for him. So he didn't touch, he just kind of bringing his head down. There, he actually touched it. Again, fast with his neck, so I don't love that. So kind of 3/4 of the way on, I'm clicking and then taking it off and fading. So it's going to be this process just gradually building on itself. So it's going to be repetitive, but horse training is repetitive. Like that's what it's going to be. I'm going to slowly build up so that he feels comfortable with this process. So go back to the other side. I'm going to wait for him. And then same thing. Now I can put it all the way on, click, and then take it off. And we're just gradually building up like how much pad right now can be on him, and then we'll go ahead and do duration, so how long I can keep it on him. I don't want to do those two things at the same time. That's just gonna scare him. So I gotta be really careful with just working on one thing at a time. But this is looking pretty good. He's still a little bit fast with his neck, but I can put that whole pad on him for just a second. And I like doing this, especially in the beginning with an English pad because it's a little bit less scary. It's definitely much lighter than a Western one. And I use the little, I don't know what the actual term is it, the little part that you put on your, like around your saddle's billets. I use it as a little handle. So that works out really well because I can pull it on and off pretty quickly. And I don't want to really necessarily be super careful with how I put it on and take it off because I do want him to be used to the pad just kind of swings up on his back and then it slides off and it swings around. And that's another part of just like holding onto that strap that is helpful because you can see here how it slides off. It kind of hangs, hits the ground. Like I want him totally comfortable with this pad, and then eventually like I'm going to pull it off of him. I want him to be able to step over it and be totally calm with this. Because if something were to happen and the saddle were to slide or something's going to fall off of him or I fell off of him, I don't want him to freak out and kick at it. I want him to be like, oh yeah, okay. Sometimes it's on the ground, like, and that's just part of this. This is what this does, and that's what is so great about this training is I can just build that in. Like, yeah, this stuff happens. Like, that's just how the pad functions sometimes, and then he thinks it's completely normal. So that's really helpful. So I just had to wait for him there for a little bit. He kind of touched the conal and like, or kind of went to touch the cone, but didn't actually, and then he kind of rubbed his face and. So I'm just kind of waiting for him to be confident enough to touch it. He was kind of shedding on his chest there, so I was trying to get some of that hair off. It's springtime in this video, and he gets really sweaty. He grows a pretty decent winter coat, and then he gets really sweaty up there, and then it gets all like jumbled together, and it kind of gets into a big knot. So I'm just trying to get some of that hair off so it's not quite so uncomfortable. Um, that he's being really good there. So I'm just going to reinforce him for that. And it's probably best that I take breaks in between too, because um, like that's just good for them to have a mental break so it's not so repetitive, like giving him a scratch or just moving on to a different behavior and then coming back to this one, or taking a quick break and letting him graze or something, and then coming back. So those are also really important. I don't always show those breaks because some of the, I mean, the training is repetitive in itself, and then just watching a horse take a break is, there's not a whole lot going on there, but it is important to do for sure, and it's a big important part of training. So same thing, keeping the pad on for a second and then continuing pulling it off. So I probably should go ahead at this point and keep that pad on a little bit longer. So 1, 2, click, take off. Yep. So he is definitely at the point where he can kind of stand for a little bit longer with the pad on, as long as he's being relaxed with it. So I took a quick break to get some more food, and then I'm going to come back. He's very willing to come back and touch the cone, so that's a good sign. Go ahead, 1, 2, click, pull it off. Very nice. And he looks a little bit more relaxed here. A little bit slower with his head, so I do like that. So again, 2 seconds. I'm clicking as it's on him, pulling it off, and then feeding. Waiting for him to touch his start button. Put the pad on. 1, 2, click, pull off, and feed. Perfect. That looks pretty good. So he didn't touch it the first time, so I'm going to wait for him the second time. Probably count to 3 and then take it off. So that looks really, really nice. And I'm just going to continue to build up the time like that. So again, he can stand there for about 3 seconds, clicking while the pad's on, taking it off. I need to be paying attention because he touched the cone there and I wasn't looking. That looks very, very nice. Repeat that on the other side. I should be going ahead and asking him to going ahead and just doing multiple seconds on this other side, since he was cool with that on this side. I think I'm just building up the same way. So yeah, about 2 seconds, and then I'm clicking feeding. A little bit faster with his head on this side. So 1, 2, click, take it off. So this looks a little bit better. About 3 seconds, clicking, and then feeding. Yeah, this looks pretty good. I think I'm pretty happy with this, especially from how the last session was, when he wanted to kind of run away and got a little bit scared and I went too fast. So not too bad at all. So he wanted to kind of touch the pad there. Again, I don't love how fast he is touching that, but he does seem quite relaxed while the pad is on his back. That was better. So a little bit slower with his head. 1, 2, 3, click, take it off, and feed. And when I'm counting, I'm literally just counting normal like that. So 1, 2, 3. You can count like 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, whatever. I just like to do it like that. Yeah, that looks really nice. So that's pretty much the process for right now. We're about at 3 seconds. And then I'm just going to continue to build up from here and then start pulling it off of him from different directions. And then adding that stir single back in too. And then just kind of switching from side to side too, making sure he's cool with having that pad on either side. Eventually, I'm probably going to only put it on him from the left side, but especially in the beginning, I want to make sure he's cool with it from both sides. That looked really nice. Yeah, pretty good. We can just end that session there. Like really, like that's plenty. I kind of have a tendency to overdo things a little bit. I do like that he's putting his head down a little bit while the pad goes on. That's pretty nice. I think that just kind of happened on its own last time. Yeah, I really love that body language there. His head and neck's nice and level. He's kind of putting his head down a little bit as that pad comes on. So that looks really, really nice. But yeah, I do have a tendency to drill a little bit. Yeah, I like that his head came down. But that actually worked out. Because I kind of caught the head going down and ended up clicking for it because it met my time requirement. So that looks really nice, but I just got to be careful not to drill the lesson.